Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be making another apple dessert. If you've watched me make tarte tatin, you've watched me peel and cut up apples. These are cut up a little bit differently because we're going to be making Governor Tryon's Humble Crumble Apple Pie from the first Outlander Kitchen Cookbook. And so the first thing we have to do is peel and cut up Granny Smith apples. It specifically calls for firm tart apples such as Granny Smith. So we're trying those again, which we did use for our tarte tatin. If you want to watch that, I'll link that up there. But they kind of fell apart a little bit there. We'll see what happens here. I don't know. But we've peeled, cut them into approximately 1/2 inch wedges. And we are going to toss these with some lemon juice. I really love this citrus squeezer. And no, I am not going to measure it. It'll be fine. There is a measurement. It's about half of a lemon. It'll be fine. We need some dark brown sugar, lightly packed. We have some granulated sugar, some butter that has been diced. So I think that won't do much right now, but it will be in the dish while it bakes, and then it will do something. Some cornstarch that will help thicken it a bit. I'm just going to use this to help get it all out of this. Normally I wouldn't do all of this measuring, but we do that when we film just because it makes it a whole lot easier. And then in here we have some salt, some cinnamon, and some freshly grated nutmeg. He might have gone a little heavy on the nutmeg, but whatever. There we go. And we're going to toss this, get it all sort of coated, and it needs to sit for an hour before we actually put these in the pie and bake them, which is why we are trying to get this done at this point. I'm going to stick this in my microwave just because it's out of the way, and if we happen to have any fruit flies, which mostly have gone away, thankfully it is now cooler, they'll be out of the way of flies and such. And now, as the name suggests, this pie has a crumble topping, and that's what we're going to make here in our food processor. We can use pecans, which we are using, or walnuts, your choice. And the first thing we're going to do is pulse these. We're supposed to also add some more dark brown sugar. And we're going to pulse these in our food processor 5 to 7 times. The nuts should be coarsely chopped. Some olive. There we go. I'll call that coarsely chopped. And now we're going to add, I think there's supposed to be some cinnamon in here. Okay, I'm not going to put it in here, but I think there should be some cinnamon in here because the total ingredients for cinnamon is more than we added to the apples themselves. But there's no place where it says to put cinnamon in here. It would make sense to put it in here, but it'll be fine without it. So we're just going to not put it in here. But we are going to put in some all-purpose flour, and there's also a little bit of salt. And the rest of our cubed up butter. I'm using unsalted, but she doesn't specify, and it doesn't really matter in my experience. There isn't a line thing there, that's just me. And now we're going to pulse it 2 to 3 times. I assume I'll need a little bit more, but. Okay, I'll call that good. I was like another 7 times, whatever. And now we're going to I'm going to turn this out probably into this bowl because it'll fit it. And I'm probably going to put it in the refrigerator just because we don't really need it. And for like an hour. So our apple filling it's got about 10 minutes left before it's done. So we are going to roll out our dough. Now, she asks for the shortcut crust pastry that's also in this book, which we have made before, but I didn't have any on hand, but I did have some other stuff. So the short crust pastry that from here, I'll link that above, but you just need one pie crust worth of dough. And this has been in my freezer for a while, so hopefully it'll be okay. Just any sort of pie dough that you like will be fine. And I need to roll this out to about, I think, 1/8 of an inch thick. So I'm gonna be here doing this for a little while. All right, I think that's the best I can do with this. Looks like I may have a little bit of freezer burn, even though it was double wrapped in the freezer, but it was in the freezer for a while, so. Can't find, well, I just found my smaller pie plate, but we've got so much filling. I think I'm gonna use this larger one. It calls for a 9-inch pie plate, but I think this might be a 10-inch. It'll be fine. All right, so now we're gonna try to make this work. So the goal is to have sort of a doubled edge everywhere, which I currently cannot have. But we will do what we can because it is just dessert. Since mine has this sort of fluted edge, I'm just going to kind of push it into those flutes for the sort of prettiness. All right, that'll just be fine. That'll be fine. So this has been sitting for, yeah, an hour, and there is a lot of juice accumulated on the bottom. But that is fine. Our butter is also not well distributed, but whatever, it is what it is. But we're gonna put these into our pie crust, mound them up as much as necessary. It will, like I said, it will cook down a lot. I'm heating my oven to 425. It should have been there already, but it's not. But that's okay, because I'm still not quite ready for it. See, the butter is just kind of sitting there. I feel like it would be better to put it over top at the end, but we're following the recipe. Be more well distributed like that, but whatever, it'll be fine. I'm glad I went with the larger pie plate that I had, because this is a lot. And she says to sort of make sure you put all of the juices in there, all over the whole thing. I'm gonna try to get all of the butter. Use my hand, because why not? I need a piece of foil that will cover this, but I need to brush it with butter. Just got some softened butter, and I'm going to use this pastry brush to cover all of it. And she says to cover lightly with foil brushed in butter, so I'm not going to really crimp it down, but I think we just want it not to stick, and that's why we're... So I'm just going to kind of put this on here and make sure it's all kind of covered, but I'm not gonna crimp it down really. And this is gonna go into the oven for an hour once it's up to 425 degrees, which it almost is. And you wanna cook this on the bottom of the oven, so sort of the lowest rack that you have. 425 for 1 hour, and we will see you at that point when we're ready to finish it. So here's our apple pie after an hour. It looks like the apples are almost cooked. Took the foil off, and I did decide to add the cinnamon that we were missing in the recipe. I looked and couldn't find it anywhere else, to our crumble mixture. So we're going to put this all over. It's a lot. It's very, oops, that's going to be hot. It's very floury, but hopefully it will help with some of those juices because it looks very, very juicy currently. I did put it on to this baking sheet because I felt like it might overflow, but we'll see. I've turned the oven down to 375. And we're going to put this back in for 15-ish minutes or until it is golden brown. The crust and the topping are golden brown. And we're going to hope that our crust is nice and cooked. All right, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make Governor Tryon's Humble Crumble Apple Pie from the first Outlander Kitchen cookbook. I haven't actually well, I've tasted it, kind of. But everyone else has eaten it. We ate it with some ice cream, vanilla ice cream. She says serve it with that or the whiskey sauce from Jem's bread pudding, also in this book. We haven't made that yet, but ice cream was a great addition to it, especially if we like an apple crisp, an apple crumble with ice cream. So that was great. I think this is a lot easier than a lattice crust for sure. A lot easier than, you know, a whole apple pie with the top crust. And I think it lets it sort of bake out a little bit more, so it maybe won't be quite as juicy, because sometimes that's what happens with apple pies. In fact, let's show you. It did slice up pretty well. I'll take a picture of this too. I cut it when it was still warm and a little bit of juices came out, but not too many. It was not particularly runny, and they're kind of staying together. I think I cooked mine for a little bit more than 15 minutes just to get it all brown on top, but that's very much up to you what you want to do there. The only problem we had with this recipe was that there was sort of a half of a teaspoon of cinnamon missing, and I ended up adding that to the crumble on top, which I think made sense. Perfectly fine. And we didn't use the short crust pastry from the book, but any crust, any sweet pie crust will be just fine here. I think the bottom crust, probably a little soggy bottom, but it's fine. And again, mine was a little old in the freezer, but so it might be a little extra tough. But that's not her crust, so it doesn't really matter. It's not super sweet. There's only total about 3/4 of a cup of sugar in it, and those apples are very tart, and I think they need it. So, yeah, I would certainly make this again. Might use a different apple next time, maybe a pink lady or something like that. But we enjoyed it. And if you've enjoyed watching us make this, please give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.